Let's say this Twinkie represents the normal amount of psychokinetic energy in the gaming world. According to this morning sample, it would be a Twinkie, 35 feet long and weighing approximately 600 pounds. Okay, Ghostbusters the video game may not be that good, or I guess bad according to Egon, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Hello everyone, Jeremy here. Today we are taking a look at Ghostbusters the video game, developed by Terminal Reality and published by Atari, who I had to look up if they still exist. Spoiler alert, they do. But that wasn't the big news when this game was released in 2009. What got fans all aflutter was the fact the original cast of Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Bill Murray had returned to voice the characters. Aykroyd and Ramis even wrote the script, making this the only Ghostbusters threequel we will ever see with this amazing team. But does it live up to the Ghostbusters name, or is it something weird and it don't look good? Full disclosure, I originally played this game back in 2009 on the Xbox 360, but remember very little other than enjoying it. For this review, I am taking a look at the PC version. The game options come with HD settings and up to 60 frames per second. You can tweak the game's INI file to unlock frame rates, bump up anti-aliasing, or input pretty much any common HD or SD resolution you want. Keeping this spoiler-free, the story takes place roughly 2 years after Ghostbusters 2, just before Thanksgiving, and our favorite paranormal investigators have landed on their feet, more or less. I got the sense that while they are definitely not hurting for money like they were when we first met them, I still felt like we were a couple of bad days away from getting the power shut off. We suit up as the new rookie on the team, who may be more guinea pig than raw recruit. The team likes to strap untested weaponry on our back and send us into uncertain situations with not much more than a good luck. Which, to be fair, is pretty much how all Ghostbusters got their start. This is very much a sequel to the first Ghostbusters film, with many a surprise callback and character making appearances, but the second film is shown some love as well. Unlike the second film though, which always felt especially Venkman heavy to me, this installment does a good job of sharing the spotlight with all the Ghostbusters. Typically, at about the moment I thought one Ghostbuster was getting more time than another, that very same character would take a step back while the other would step into the spotlight. The game did this by partnering us up with various Ghostbusters during missions. Don't worry though, the game knew we were there to see everyone and brought the whole group together fairly often. Even if not seen, most were often heard on your radio. And the voice acting is great. Even Bill Murray, who has always been reluctant to return, didn't phone in his performance. Sure, he didn't feel quite as dialed in as the other actors, but considering the others felt like they stepped right off the screen, I think Murray can be forgiven. The supernatural jargon was also there.
Ooh, class 1 swarmers! Pesky but combustible.
But just as importantly, so was the humor.
Man, I wish Venkman was here.
I'm pretty sure Venkman doesn't.
I can't say I walked away with a dozen new quotes like I did after the first film, but the comedy typically hit for me, with rarely a miss. And I won't ruin any surprises, but the Easter eggs in the firehouse were some of my favorites. For a 10-year-old game, Ghostbusters looks pretty darn good in HD. The proton packs and accessories aged especially well. While the cutscenes are unfortunately in standard def, the look of the gameplay still holds up. The ghosts look right out of the Ghostbusters universe by being equally funny and creepy at times, and the character models are pretty solid as well. They won't hold up against 2018's God of War, but considering there can be up to 4 other characters as well as ghosts the size of football fields on screen at the same time, it's not far behind some current gen games. The age probably shows the most in environmental textures, but this is an action comedy horror title, which there are very few of, and I was more concerned with my proton stream than what it destroyed. Speaking of, all the effects related to your equipment was spot on. The proton stream and PKE meter look just as I remember, and the new equipment looks good in its slap together and hope it works way. And the gleeful and wanton destruction your streams cause is just as I remember from the films. On that note, the sounds of the proton pack, PKE, ghost trap, you name it, appear to have been lifted directly from the movies. Even the new weapons at your disposal have an appropriately Ghostbusters sound to them. Ghosts retain their familiar ethereal roar, but it's the music that takes the cake in this department. Essentially, most of the musical themes from the first film have found their way into this game, adding a level of authenticity. Walking around as a Ghostbuster is one thing, but to walk around with the original Ghostbusters music behind me is a whole other level of great. I've been showering this game with so much love you'd think it was Game of the Year in 2009. Well, there's a reason it wasn't. The controls. Don't get me wrong, the controls aren't a total protonic reversal. The act of capturing a ghost, meaning firing your proton stream, ensnaring the ghost, wrangling it to a trap you threw, and holding onto it until the trap closes, all near perfection in my book. They absolutely nail the feeling of capturing a ghost, and it was my favorite part of the game. Which, when your game is called Ghostbusters, that's a win. Also, using the PKE meter and goggles were a lot of fun, once I realized how to use them. The goggles find weaknesses in ghosts, while the PKE alerts you to paranormal activity. When paired together, the PKE meter will lead you to secrets and unlockables that typically grant you money to upgrade your equipment. Beginner's tip: the PKE meter hangs on your belt where you can see the screen. Instead of walking around the first few levels with your PKE in front of your face like I did, just let it hang on your belt. The meter screen is still visible, and it will spike and let out a sound if you are near something worth investigating. Throughout the game, you also unlock a few different weapons, all powered by, or at least attached to, your proton pack. I won't go specifically into what they are so you can have some surprise, but I will say I liked a couple, but one I never really used. The others were fun though, and nice in-world additions. Speaking of weapons, and keep in mind this is a PC review, I found the weapon switching unresponsive at times. I tried the D-pad on the controller and the corresponding keyboard buttons, and neither gave me consistent results. This appears to be a bug the developer never corrected. Annoying, but not game-breaking. Now, while I would not want my paranormal scientist to dive into cover like he's in Gears of War, like I said, I did have some issues with movement. And yes, I understand why our character moves as he does. In fact, I applaud Terminal Reality for keeping the movement in line with the movies. The problem becomes this is a video game, and in a game like this, we are given enemies that require quick reflexes and last-minute dodges. While a dodge button exists, I rarely found it worked any better than just sidestepping an attack. Oh, and just so we're clear, the attack wouldn't miss in either case. The controls weren't a deal breaker by any means, they were just a bit too restrictive, and I felt they should have been loosened up a bit. Something that didn't break the game, but certainly broke the flow, were team revives. In the game, you don't have lives, but if you lose all your health, you get knocked down. The only way to get up is if your teammate revives you. It's not a bad system in theory, but there were times when I should have been battling ghosts, but instead I had to focus on reviving my fellow Ghostbusters. Getting nitpicky, I also would have liked a dedicated flashlight button. We go into some pretty dark places, and I don't mean emotionally, and while the flashlight automatically pops on sometimes, it doesn't always. So, more of a wish list item for me. Now, if we want game breaking, I did have the game lock up during load screens a few times on my Windows 10 PC. I had to run compatibility settings and even restart my PC more than once, so please beware of this. A related tip, the game appears to only save after cutscenes or when you quit your current game. If the game crashes, you are probably going back to wherever you were when you started that session. With this in mind, after I got through particular sections, I found it beneficial to quit my game, so it saved, then I hopped back in. No, you don't need to close the game, just quit your current playthrough. Why the developer chose a save system like this is beyond me, but I wanted you to be aware. Additionally, it should be noted, the multiplayer component that existed in the console version is completely absent from the PC iteration. After 10 years, I doubt too many people would still be playing, but I felt it should be known. The nostalgia factor is extremely high for Ghostbusters the video game, but I think that's intentional. The game feels like a love letter to fans, and a way for the original four to connect with us one last time. Sure, when they made this game, they didn't know this would be their last outing, but once we lost Harold Ramis, that sadly became the case. Is this a perfect game? No, not by any means. In fact, As I make this, we are on the cusp of an HD remaster release. However, unless that remaster makes adjustments to the gameplay or adds something new, the 2009 version I own will work just fine. If they did a complete remake, keeping the original dialogue and updating the graphics and overhauling the gameplay, then we can talk. But as it stands, Ghostbusters the video game is a whole lot of fun and is the Ghostbusters 3 we never got in theaters. I know whenever I feel nostalgic and decide to watch the films, this will enter the rotation as the game I play after. So, have you played the original Ghostbusters the video game? What was your favorite part? And do you plan to buy the remaster? Please leave your comment below. Additionally, please like, share, and subscribe if you're so inclined. I'm trying to grow One Protagonist and can only do that with your help. Anything you do is truly appreciated. Well, that's all for this time. See you on the other side, Ray.